Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Shane Caldwell. This is our Week 13 running backs show. Shane, are you ready to crush the running back selections?
Yeah, there's some familiar names that we've liked all year that are popping up as some of the best plays for the running backs this week. So it is kind of exciting to see these guys that we really like anyways, but they're in great spots and probably get them at pretty low ownership as well. So it's another one of those weeks where I'm looking to maybe pay down a little bit at running back. I may not be going all the way to the top here, but there's going to be some interesting decisions on that, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, the running backs slate here I think is really interesting because, if you missed our quarterback show, which you can still check out on YouTube, we're calling it the value week at quarterback. So you've got some money to spend at running back if you want. But up and down the price range here, I don't think there's a lot of must plays or slam dunks. I think there's a lot of guys that are in pretty solid spots. And so you really have to evaluate it. And that's what we're going to try to do here. And I've been a little bit more leaning on the expensive running backs this week than Shane. So we're going to mix it up here. And I'm going to start it off this week with the running backs and describe one of the more expensive guys. And it's Dalvin Cook at 9,500 on DraftKings. And we faded him last week in a solid spot. And we're fortunate that, all those carries, 30 a week, they finally caught up to him. He got banged up a little bit. And so now it's a big question mark here. Is he going to be 100% healthy? And are folks going to pay up for him again? Minnesota's going up against Jacksonville. They're huge favorites, 10-point favorites in a total that's 52 and a half. And those numbers, of course, come from our presenting sponsor, BetUS.com.pa. So on paper, huge favorite against the team that's 29th against the run. There's a lot to like. But what will Minnesota do? How much will they run it? How much will they pass it? Will they try to protect him a little bit with his health? I kind of think that after that down week of only 22 touches, I think they may go back to him and feature him a lot. I mean, Minnesota's 5-6. This is a must-win game for them. And I don't think they're going to let their season go by going easy with Dalvin Cook. So assuming he's healthy, I'm ready to fire him up this week.
Awesome. Yeah, at the top of the board for me, I'm going to start with Nick Chubb, a guy we really liked last week and produced here. One of the most talented running backs in a scheme where Cleveland, where they love to run the ball and they've been good at run blocking. I love their run scheme. We've talked about that all year. Nick Chubb, the most explosive running back in terms of big play ability to break tackles and make quick cuts, and just his speed overall. He's awesome. He's going up against Tennessee. This is a high scoring game. We've talked a lot about this game this week, over under 54, but Cleveland are big underdogs on the road there. So that's where that makes you a little nervous about Nick Chubb. But I think overall they should stay competitive in this game and feed Nick Chubb. Tennessee haven't given up monster games against the running back position, but they have given up a lot of touchdowns, which is what Nick Chubb's good for here as well. So even if Nick Chubb doesn't go for 100 some yards, he could certainly get 2 touchdowns in this game as well. And he's still capable of getting 100 yards. So he's a guy that you can look at paying up for. One of the things that popped up on the injury report for Tennessee's run defense is their star defensive tackle, Jeffrey Simmons, popped up on the injury report. I'm going to be monitoring that because that's a very critical player. A lot of people don't realize that Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best D tackles graded defensive tackle this year. He's a second-year player. And if he's out, if he doesn't practice like on Friday and it's looking like he's out, that's going to make me like Nick Chubb even more, because then Cleveland can really attack the middle with their run game here. But when Jeffrey Simmons is in there, they're pretty stout against the run. They've given up some production, but no one's really smashed against them. But overall, I like Nick Chubb. It's just I'm going to monitor the Tennessee defense and their injury report the next couple of days here. But yeah, he's one of the most talented guys in here. He's just not in the best game script. So I think, but you can certainly make an argument that he's worth paying up for here.
Yeah, and Kareem Hunt's been a little bit banged up with the thigh. And if Hunt is not out there or even limited, then you may get a couple more receptions for Chubb. And this is a great opportunity there because The Indianapolis running backs just had 11 catches for 101 yards against Tennessee, and Chubb can certainly catch passes out of the backfield and do damage that way. So that'll be an important one to watch. Derrick Henry here is another expensive guy that I'm looking at this week. And Shane, you were all over him last week with the injuries and absences to the Indianapolis defense. That was a tremendous play on DraftKings. And
Yeah.
he's gone up now. He's much more expensive at 9,200. But going against Cleveland in a high total game where they're the favorite, I think he's worth considering. We saw what James Robinson did against Cleveland. Jacksonville was able to open up some pretty big holes for him, got over 100 yards, got in the end zone. So I'm liking Derrick Henry again this week.
Yeah, that guy. I mean, like I always say, in November and December, it's Derrick Henry time, and
That's
he
right.
he produces for sure. So that guy is just a locomotive. He's awesome. Best way to describe him really is an unstoppable train. Yeah, I'm gonna go to a guy that's just came back from injury and had a monster game last week through the air. Is Austin Eckler. All of a sudden, when you combine the talent, the explosiveness, and the versatility of Austin Eckler, and then you combine the way Justin Herbert's playing and the receivers and their passing game, I just think it's a dynamic situation for the LA Chargers here. They're in a pretty tough matchup against New England. It's actually a pick 'em game, a 47.5 over under on BetUS. It's a pick 'em game, so that means it'll be a competitive game back and forth. But I still expect Austin Eckler to be heavily involved in the running game and especially in the passing game. And I like him matching up against the linebackers for New England. I just think he's a mismatch in space, and he'll once again be peppered with targets. The corners are pretty good at covering the wide receivers for New England, which means Justin Herbert may have to check down even more and get Austin Eckler even more involved in the passing game in order to move the chains here. So that's why I like him, even though it is a tough matchup. We talked a little bit earlier how Austin Eckler looks like we wish we would have played him more last week when he had his blow up spot there. But I think he's going to come right back and have another productive game here and do a lot of work in the passing game, especially. So I'll go right back to Austin Eckler here, and I just think he's one of the most explosive athletes, and I like him combining him with this talented rookie quarterback and Justin Herbert here.
Okay. I'm going to mention here as we bounce around a little bit, Miles Sanders, a guy that you've been a big proponent of this year, and he had a bit of a down week last week, but this time around, he gets to face Green Bay, and we saw what Montgomery was able to do against them. If he can find that much success, I think Miles Sanders can as well. Sort of middle of the road in terms of yardage allowed, but they give up a bunch of touchdowns. And Philly, where else are they going to turn? I know you talked about Goddard a little bit, but they need to turn on Sanders. You saw during the game, I thought he had some kind of bad body language, and I think they need to sort that out, get him the ball, and really lean on him and get him a bunch of touches. So I think Sanders can pay off value this week.
Yeah, the way Wentz has looked, he's looked so bad, and Miles Sanders looks good. It's super obvious that that's their best way to be competitive in games. Is don't let Wentz get sacked or turn the ball over, and give it to your talented running back. So yeah,
Right.
that would be nice if they would finally get him the ball because he definitely needs it, and he's talented. Here's a guy in another game that we like here, this Minnesota Jacksonville game. And it seems like every week, even though they're big underdogs, James Robinson always produces. This guy, it doesn't matter what the game script is. I mean, he's pretty much just their every down back now. He's their bell cow type back. His prices went up a little bit. He's in the high, mid to high $7,000 range. On FanDuel, he's 7,800, 7,300 DK. But he seems to produce and be a focal point of this offense. And he's not fast, but he's pretty quick off the line and explosive. And he's physical, and he does a little bit of everything. So I like this game going up against Minnesota, and you can certainly stack the game and include James Robinson in there. So he's one of the running backs that I think is in a good spot, and I think this is a sneaky shootout game. It's a 52.5 over under, which is the second highest over under in the game. But I think that Jacksonville might be a little more competitive. Minnesota's 10-point favorite, so Jacksonville's big underdogs. But I think Jacksonville might be able to keep it a little bit closer there. And James Robinson will be a big reason why.
Yeah, I like Robinson a lot here. Minnesota gives up catches to the running back, and he's just out there every play, getting tons of touches every single week. If you want to get a pivot there, save a little money, you could go to Aaron Jones against Philadelphia, a guy coming off a bit of a down week with Jamal Williams stepping up. But I think it'll be back to Jones this week. Um, Philly is number 23 against the run this year in terms of yardage. Green Bay, 8.5 point favorites on BetUS. So I think Aaron Jones steps up.
Awesome. And I'm gonna go over to Chicago here and take a look at David Montgomery. We've seen what he did against Green Bay. Kind of came out of nowhere. It's the first time I've ever seen him running in the open field, and he had that long run there. I was like, wow, he could actually run more than 3 or 4 yards.
He didn't know what
impressive.
to do.
Yeah, he didn't know what to do, but he looked fast. He looked explosive and powerful as he typically is. So being that Chicago's finally getting this running game going. And they got Detroit, the best matchup against the run. Detroit lost Danny Shelton to IR, so he was one of their big run stuffers in the middle. They got John Pennicini, who was like a 6th-round draft pick, trying to anchor the inside of that defensive line there. So
did they have any big run stuffers? Have they ever had one this year?
Well, Danny Shelton was supposed to be the big run stuffer, so he was the biggest guy they had in there. So, but now that he's out, yeah, they're a little bit, they're even weaker on that defensive front. Now, Chicago's not really great in terms of their offensive line, run blocking, and that type of thing. But if they can get a little bit space like they did against Green Bay last week, David Montgomery looks explosive, and he gets involved in the passing game now as well. And he's really cheap. His price is still very low since he just came back off injury, but he looks fresh, he looks explosive, and he's in a great matchup here. So I think that's the best way for Chicago to win this game, is to feed David Montgomery and prevent Trubisky from making any type of errors. So I like David Montgomery here.
I do as well. Another guy in that price range I'll mention as a GPP pivot, because you can't really trust the situation. Of course, that's Jonathan Taylor with Indianapolis. And what I like about him is, first of all, the matchup. It's Houston. They're number 31 against the run. We saw what Detroit did with the touchdowns from AP. And, with Taylor, the wild card is just, will he get the goal line carries? But what I like is that 2 weeks ago, he had 26 touches. So they finally said, all right, you can lead the way here in the backfield with the carries. And then he took a week off on the COVID list. So he's coming back, should be rested. Great matchup. Good price. So in some GPPs, I'll put him out there.
Yeah, we got two guys that are the narrative. They were off on the COVID list, and we think they're going to come back fresh and smash. The guy for me, unrelated to running backs, was Adam Thielen, who just sat there and had to watch his team narrowly win. And then Jonathan Taylor had to do the same thing. He had to sit at home and watch the Colts, get beat up bad against Tennessee there. So Jonathan Taylor's going to he's going to get fed finally. We've been talking about this guy all year, and I think he's finally to the point where it's Jonathan Taylor time. So. You're sick of me talking about Jonathan Taylor, trust me. Yeah. But no, he's talented. He'll get there. And then I have a couple guys that if I feel like they're going to play, they could be in good spots for some value plays here. I'm going to take a look at Myles Gaskin. Early in the week, we don't know for sure he's going to play for the Miami Dolphins, but the Dolphins are going against the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's a great matchup for them. They're massive favorites here, 11.5-point home favorites for the Miami Dolphins. Isn't that crazy? And a 42 over/under. So you're looking at a heavy run script game here in a great spot. Myles Gaskin has been productive when he's in there, and he's in a great matchup against Cincinnati. So if he's healthy, he's been practicing for a couple weeks as he came off IR here. If he's healthy and playing, and we get reports that he is going to be the lead back, which it looks like he would be. You can get him at 5,500 on FanDuel and 5,900 on Draftkings. I think he's a great play, and you're going to get him at lower ownership because he's right now a questionable tag on both sites. So Myles Gaskin is a guy that could pop up late in the week that could be a good value play in just an absolute great matchup in a really good game script here for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I like it as well. Now, the next guy for me is James White. 5,000 on DraftKings. This is the focus here on PPR. And am I playing him because he had 2 touchdowns last week? Absolutely not. The reason I'm looking at him is because Bill Belichick's all about the game plan week to week. And James White got a little bit of a bump against Arizona because Burkhead is out. And just so happened that he got the 2 carries close in to score the touchdowns. But the matchup against the Chargers, what I think Belichick and company are going to look at is that they've given up 6 or more receptions to 5 different running backs this year. So to me, it's going to be check it down to White, get it in his hands, find a way to get it to him. And when, Cam Newton in that victory really struggled passing. What was it? Under 100 yards passing, and they won. And you just can't count on that long term. So let's get some, smart short passes. I also like Jacoby Myers for that reason, but let's get it out of his hands into the skill position players and let White work his magic.
Yeah, I think Cam can handle just some check downs like he used to do with Christian McCaffrey there, because sometimes it look good trying to pass deep or intermediate. Right. So, yeah, check it down to these running backs and let them run for sure. And then the other guy that I'm monitoring for the injury report, as a late week ad possible, is DeAndre. We know that DeAndre Swift kind of took over the bell cow role a couple weeks ago, and then he got a concussion and was out. And he missed the Thanksgiving game. He missed the last couple games with a concussion. So he should be back. I don't think he's technically cleared concussion protocol as of Thursday in week 13 here, but he probably will in the next few days. Now, he's got a tough matchup against the Chicago Bears, but he's going to be probably their bell cow role, and DeAndre Swift can get it done in the passing game as well. As with this tough pass rush, I can see Matt Stafford checking down to Swift and him getting in open space. He's a great explosive runner in open space here. So because of that and the fact that people forgot that he's taken over this role, you can get DeAndre Swift at super low ownership. So he's the type of guy you can look at at that $6,000 price range. If I find out that Akeem Hicks is out again for Chicago, I'm going to like DeAndre Swift even more. I'm guessing that Akeem Hicks is going to come back from his hamstring injury and play this week for the Chicago Bears. He's kind of that big anchor inside there. He completely changes the Chicago defense, but Swift even more. Otherwise, Swift is kind of a GPP flyer type play who could have a big game, especially in the passing game against a tough Chicago defense. But he's super talented, and he's one of the best ways for the Lions to try to be productive. And with the coach being fired, they might look to get Swift involved even more, because Matt Patricia was all about load management with rookies. Darrell Bevell might just say, I'm just going to game plan to have Swift get the ball even more now. And that's the best way to win the ball, because Darrell Bevell is essentially auditioning for future coaching jobs right now. So he has incentive to do well. And DeAndre Swift's one of his most talented guys remaining on the roster. So.
Absolutely. A lot of good points there. Last guy for me, if you need to save a few extra bucks, I think you could look at Cam Akers on DraftKings. 4,500 is a really good price. Last week, he had a nice outing, 84 yards rushing and a touchdown. And for the season, he's at 4.8 yards per carry. He's a lot more attractive to me as a runner than Henderson and Brown. And I think that's the way it's looking more and more to the Rams coaching staff. And this week he gets Arizona, 3-point favorites, over under 48.5. They're 22nd against the run. So pretty good spot for him. The only problem is that he only has 3 receptions all season. So in the PPR situation, it's not ideal. Again, I would prefer to spend the extra 500 for a guy like James White. But if you just can't afford him, then I think you could go with Akers in a GPP.
Is Cam Akers, is he Jonathan Taylor's long lost brother there? The talented rookies that can't get on the field. It seems like exactly. It seems very similar. Caught in a timeshare, a running back by committee. Yeah, he's a guy that we've been looking to get carries all year and feel like he's most talented running back on the team there. Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that could get it going here late in the year, as they finally might trust him now. So
yeah, and I don't think we've recommended him all year, but this could be the first week. So. Again, check in with us on Sunday or between now and Sunday to get our final lineups. You can do that with the BetUS offer. Go to betus.com.pa. Use that promo code CoachTalk, all one word, and then send us a message on Twitter, and we'll get you into our Discord. That's where we give out our lineups Sunday mornings or Sunday early afternoon on the East Coast, 45 minutes before kickoff. Or if you don't want to do the offer with BetUS, just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com, get one of our memberships there, and we'll get you an email and get you into our Discord. And you can interact with our great group of members. We have a lot of fun in there. rooting on our teams every slate. So that's the situation at DFS Coach Talk. Follow Shane on Twitter at DET Sports Shane. You can follow me at Language Olympic. The coach is at JOESARVADI. Shane, any final thoughts here?
No, I appreciate the support. If you like and subscribe to us on YouTube so we can continue to produce these awesome running back videos and quarterbacks and wide receiver tight end videos every week. And yeah, let's have a great week for week 13. We're excited about these running backs here.
Absolutely. Yeah, check out those other shows if you haven't yet. And then come back with us later this weekend, and we'll have our primetime show where we break down those games from a DFS perspective. So great job today, as always, Shane. On behalf of Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.